sessions in the morning. Let's go.
I think that when you're making objectives, you have to make sure that they're smart. Smart,
Right.
we talked of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. Yeah.
And the last one, which is time bound, right? Great. Thank you, Robert. Who else wants to share what they learned this morning?
I also learned about the audience, the target audience.
Right.
Attenders. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So when you started and you said primary, secondary, in my mind, I just said tertiary, hoping that you would also say that. But yeah, we have the primary, secondary, and unintended audience. Great. Thank you very much, Thomas, for sharing that. Can we take it?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
One more. Okay. All right. So we also mentioned something small about doing a research and trying as much as possible to understand what your audience think, feel, and do about the issue that you are going to campaign about, which will essentially help you to better understand how you are going to deal with them moving forward. So to continue, we are going to look at the strategies we need to take in order to implement our artistic campaigns. And we earlier on mentioned that a strategy is a group of tactics and implementation plans that we put together in order to help you achieve your goal at the end of the day. So this is what we mean by the strategy. So you can have a couple of objectives that would lead you to achieve the goal that you need. And with these objectives that we discussed earlier on, we said that they need to be smart. And with that, we can have several other objectives based on the number of activities or the number of tactics that we are going to do, so that at the end of the day, we can achieve the goal that we want to achieve. So you see here that you can have a couple of tactics coming together to form one objective. And a couple more can be there before you can reach your goal. So a group of these things or the strategy. Now you would think that having an objectives and coming out with really creative tactics will just go smoothly to help you achieve the goal that you want to achieve. But sometimes it looks more like this, and you can plan everything so well and have your objectives and everything. But then when you start implementing those tactics, you see that there are certain things you need to reconsider. And when we started in the morning, I mentioned that the evaluation doesn't really come or doesn't always come at the very end of the whole project. Sometimes you need to break along the way and reevaluate what you are doing, look at how you are working and what sort of impact you are making or what sort of achievements you are gaining. And if there's a need for you to change the way you do things, then you do that. So the journey might end up looking this way or looking this zigzag instead of a straight, path to the goal that you want to achieve. And if for some reason you feel that even though things are not really going as planned, you are still going to continue with the original plan that you have, this might be what will happen to you. You may not reach your goal and totally deviate from whatever it is that you are doing, and you maybe somehow just quit doing the whole thing altogether. So it's important that after coming out with your tactics and objectives, and while you are moving forward towards your goal, you need to always take a step back, see what you are doing well, see some of the things that you can improve, and then you can move forward. This will help you to stay on track and to reach the goal that you are hoping to achieve. So let's look at creative mapping. Here we are going to specifically talk about some of the strategies that we can use, which will come out straight out of the ordinary and not conventional, Because these days, when we talk about campaign, you see people shouting flash mobs or having a peaceful march, having writing, petitions, soliciting people's signatures to, petition the government or something like that. We are trying to see how we can move beyond that, And we mentioned earlier on that we don't just want to raise awareness of people, we also want them to move towards taking an action on the issue that we are discussing. So the creative mapping session will actually help us to come out with really creative strategies or really creative tactics that we can use to engage our audience. And we have a very interesting exercise that we always use to do this that involves us, drawing these things. But unfortunately, the Google Meet feature, the Google Meet whiteboard feature, which would have allowed us to do this, actually doesn't work with mobile phones like that. And I understand most of us are using mobile phones, so this particular activity will be very difficult to do. So I challenge you to take the initiative to do it on your own after this workshop. Maybe tomorrow or sometime during your free time, you can actually sit down and do this activity and see the results that you are going to get. So one thing that we need to know is that creativity lies between the known and the unknown, or the possible and the impossible. That is where creativity lies, in between these two areas, the unknown and the known, or the possible and the impossible. Yeah, so this is the activity I was talking about, but yeah, we'll share the whole PowerPoint with you, and you can find this exercise in the document. So at your own convenient time, you can actually work on it. So let me just explain how it works. First of all, what happens is that you are going to draw impossible strategies, something that is not possible to do. Okay, this is the second one, I'm sorry. This is rather the first one. You draw a practical strategy. So let's say you are talking about climate change, right? And you want to tackle climate change. You are going to draw some of the things that you would do if you were not a creative activist, or if you're not using the artistic activism model and you were just going to do a campaign on climate change. What are some of the things that you do? And the things that may come into your head would be, the demonstrations, holding placards and signs on the street, organizing sensitization workshops for young people and adults alike, asking for people to sign petitions on maybe the ban of single-use plastics and all these other things. Those are the very practical things that you can do. The campaign for climate change is concerned. So after doing that, you can also look at the impossible strategy. And this is where we don't limit our ideas. You let your mind go far and wide and wild. You think about anything that you could do that would help you to achieve your aim. And like I said, there is no limit to where you can take this. You can even bring aliens on board. You can use magic. You can invent things that are not in existence and all that. So you think about impossible things that you would do to solve the issue. So let's say climate change, for instance. If I'm going to do this exercise, I'm probably going to draw, let's say, an alien coming from another planet to tell us how we can combat climate change, for instance. Or maybe I would sit in my lab, which I don't have, and create a bomb that would just explode, and all the plastic waste in the world would be absorbed into this, blast. Or I could have like a magic wand that anytime I see someone, or anytime I see deforestation, I just, do the abracadabra thing, and like the whole forest will grow. Something like that, something really crazy. Things that is not even possible, right? So when you draw all these things down, you now come back to do the third one, that creativity lies between the possible and the impossible. So you now look at these two things that you have drawn before, the very practical ones and the ones that are not so practical, or the ones that are quite impossible to do, and you see how you can merge them together to come out with something that exists before, but something that is actually possible to work with. And if you do this exercise, you realize that, yeah, we can actually push our minds to a point where we can come out with something new that is applicable and can also work within the society or the community at which we are coming from. All right, I feel like this is so much content, and I just want to pause to see if you really understand these three strategies that I've explained, and if we have any questions on that. Any questions or concerns? Ladies and gentlemen, I need feedback.
Maybe everything is clear.
Okay, thank you, Kido. How about others? Okay.
I think I'm okay.
And of course, if you use your microphone, you can equally just write your reflection in the chat as to whether everything is okay, or if you have any question. So artistic activism makes the impossible possible. That is what artistic activism does. It sort of like brings something that people would probably not even think that it would make an impact, and actually make it appealing to the general public in a way that it captures their attention, retains that attention, makes them ask themselves some innate questions, and inspire them to actually take an action towards that particular issue that you are bringing on board or you are speaking about. So let's talk about how to engage audience. So if you were to do a campaign on climate change, which is the topic that we've been using since we started, how would you engage your audience? And I just want to remind you that in the beginning, we said that we are looking at what our audience think, feel, and do. So I'm asking again, how would you engage your audience, having that sort of mindset at the back of your mind? Yes. Okay, let me rephrase the question again. Creative audience engagement. And my question is that if you are working on a project on climate change, how would you engage your audience in a creative way? That is the question.
I think one way I can engage my audience is, let's say, by coming up with a video illustrating the effects of climate change and bad activities to the environment. Yeah, it should be in such a way that it's appealing to their emotion, and also it should be logical that everyone is able to tap the information that I want to share with them.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's look at this picture. Let's look at these two scenarios. How do you engage people to actually take action? Do you give out leaflets or do you show them the facts and statistics about the issue? Which one would you go for? Sharing leaflets and showing people facts and statistics about an issue?
I think I would give leaflets as compared to facts and statistics, because in most cases people don't like numbers, and statistics there involves numbers. So giving them leaflets where there is a bit of demonstration and stuff like that, at least it will do and pay attention to the people.
Interesting. Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Who else has a different idea or a different thought on that? Uh-huh.
Okay, and showing facts and statistics, this is the way I would use, because when we show people like the current situation, I think they may take action because they're seeing what is currently happening, so that can also work from my point of view.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, so with artistic activism, we actually want people to think in terms of action. So with the leaflets and the statistics, one thing from my very own experience is that with the leaflets, usually people just read it and they discard it. There are times that people don't even read the leaflet, and like after walking maybe a few paces from where they collected the leaf, that they just that way of like engaging, and we can say that even though it is effective, but not everybody actually connects to these facts and statistics. And many people, for many people, it's even difficult to interpret some of the facts and statistics about some of these issues. So we need to think beyond just sharing information, a more personal way where they can have that sort of feeling that we want them to feel and the inspiration that they will need to actually take an action. So I want to ask you, if change was an observable action, what would it look like for you? So let's take climate change again as an example. An observable action, what would it look like to have a planet or to have a world where there is no climate change? So maybe I can give an example from my end. For me, it would mean that every individual for their actions. And based on my context in Ghana, in the northern region here, that people stop rubbish or waste, but anyone? People, are you with me?
Okay, I didn't get your.
Hi, I was still on what without climate change would look like.
Sorry, Momo, I didn't get that. Could you repeat that again?
I was still contributing on what the world without climate change would look like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were contributing on.
Okay, from my end, I think it would look like having clean rivers without plastics, because in my area, apart from the water, that is where people do everything. They bath from there, they eat from there. It is where they throw their trash, especially plastics. Sometimes you buy fish from the market, you try to open it up, the stomach is full of plastic particles. So it
Wow.
would look like clean rivers and health life for us.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Robert. It's like you had something to say, Robert. Do you still want to contribute?
I would say, I think I would love to be an environment where industries minimize using fossil fuel and minimize the importation of second-hand vehicles, which are emitting a lot of dangerous gases, which are damaging our environment.
Right.
Yeah.
So with your artistic actions, this is some of the things that you would want to highlight to let people look at the issue in a way that they also have a responsibility, and their responsibility also in order to change their actions, to move from being apathetic about the issue to actually doing something. And everything around what you are doing should be geared towards moving the people from just having an information, but also to taking an action. So there are other ways that some people will recommend that we go about activism, which includes calling the political leader, or especially if there's something wrong in your community, you call the political leader to complain about these issues. But the fact of the matter is that these politicians are very hard to get. It's very hard to reach them via phone. And sometimes over the call, they can just tell you that, yes, we work on it, but nothing ever happens. You can send a complaint letter and your letter might even end up in a trash can, Even after follow-ups, the secretary might not be able to retrieve your letter or find where they placed your letter or something like that. So yeah, chances are this might not also really work for you. But one thing that we know for sure is that we can always vote for what we believe in with the hope that the new government or the new people who are coming in can change how things are. So with audience engagement, we have certain steps that we can actually take in order to move people from just having an information, but to also taking an action. So we start from below, and we have here the pre-contemplation stage. So these are like stages of group engagement. When you are doing your campaign and you are meeting a group out there, is that you need to take in order to have like a strong audience engagement. So the first step is pre-contemplation stage, where probably your audience are not really thinking or talking about your issue or taking any action with regards to that. And what you need to do as an artistic activist at this moment is to get their attention and create like an emotional response. And the second stage is contemplation, and that is the stage where they are considering whether or not to take an action and how they would be able to do it if they decide to take an action. And it's your responsibility as an artistic activist at this moment to build their understanding and inform them, and also build their skills that they can actually use to take an action. So the next stage in green is preparation. And that is when the audience are actually preparing to take an action. Okay, so at this stage, you need to also get some form of commitment from the audience. And this commitment could be in the form of them taking an action. So we'll go into them one by one much deeper in the next slide so that you understand how to deal with them at each stage. So the next stage is taking an action, or actually doing that action, which is in the fourth stage actually. And in this stage, what you have to do as an artistic activist is to give them a reminder to take an action about that issue. The fifth stage in yellow is maintenance and repeating the same action again. And if you see that people are actually partaking and doing the action, this is where you can actually reward them and reinforce that they take the action. Then the last stage, which is identity, is that the action now becomes part of who they are as an audience. And it's also your responsibility to build that identity, to make them feel part of the community and part of the struggles that you are all in together. And this could include you inviting them to maybe join your campaign or join your youth group or organization or whatever it is that you are. So let's break it down in a way and see how we can actually do this, how we can actually engage the audience. So the first step we said is pre-contemplation stage, where the audience is not really thinking or taking any action about the issue. So with this, your duty is to get their attention and create that emotional response that we talked about. And also to make them feel and care about the issue. So chances are, especially with the issue of climate change, people might not really be thinking about it or might not really know what it is, or maybe they know but they just don't care. They feel like it's like a natural phenomenon, a natural something that should happen. So how we can actually do this is to use our audience's cultural references and ask certain questions that would lead to deeper discussions. And another important thing to do is to create a game, because usually people get engaged when there's a bit of fun in whatever it is that you are doing. You can also share visuals and photos and videos about the issue that you are talking about, just to give them that information that they need to form their own opinions. Share what your opinion is, even if it is not popular within your audience. So the second audience engagement step is contemplation. And this is where the audience is actually considering to take an action, but needs to learn how to do it. So here you need to increase their understanding, and how you can do that is to make them feel an emotional connection to the issue that you are talking about. So if it's climate change, you need to let them see how it's affecting them, how climate change is affecting them, how certain people are not doing their job in order to facilitate the process and all that. And these things will arouse certain feelings that would enable them to also take an action. And you need to also inform them about the issue to form their opinion and explain what you want them to see or what you want them to do. Sorry, there's a bit of a typo here. Let me just fix that. You need to explain to them what you want them to do. Another way you can also do this is to discuss with them. So instead of you just telling them what you want them to do, you can actually discuss with them and know what their opinions are as to what they can do with regards to the issue that you are talking about. In this way, it makes them feel part of the whole process and not feel that you are dumping your own ideologies on them. So with preparation, or with the step 3, which is preparation, the audience is taking an action now. So this is where you see that within your campaign, you see that people are now joining you, or people are now really being engaged and asking questions and getting to know more about what you are doing, or if possible, standing with you and doing whatever it is that you are doing. So at this moment, you are supposed to get their commitment to take actions. And how you can do this is to get them to agree with the information that you are sharing with them. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to force them to agree, but yeah, you can, try as much as possible to convince them that you are having the right information and ensure that they actually agree to that. You also ask them to share or express their own opinions. You develop their skills to take action in that regard. And you ask them to pledge to do something. And this could be maybe sharing their time or energy. So this pledge aspect is also very important, and that is how you get to know if maybe your campaign is making an impact or not. So when someone pledges, you can take their contact, and later on you can, do a follow-up to see if they are actually working on those pledges that they made. Which is taking action, the audience is now actually doing what you want them to do, which means that they are part of you, they are doing whatever it is that you are doing. And here you need to send a reminder to them that even after the campaign, they can equally, keep doing the actions or keep spreading the message and sharing it with their friends and family. And how you can do this is to send them a reminder via emails or SMS, or give them a call a day and remind them what they need to do and where they need to do it. So the fifth one is maintenance and reward. So the audience continue taking the action even after maybe your campaign. So you support them in taking these actions again. And In this case, the person tends to change, or the people that you engage with tends to change their behavior and regularly support and donate to whatever cause that you are fighting for or against. And you can do this by always awarding and rewarding people and appreciating them for actually taking an action or joining your movement or helping you to carry out some of the activities that you carried out. So you also find out what motivates them to take the action and include that in your action. So for instance, if maybe during your campaign you did something that someone really liked and that was the reason why they joined you to take that action, if you ask people about that and they share them, you can note it down so that next time when you are doing a similar action, you can actually add it as part of your campaign so that people can enjoy it and it can inspire more people to always join your campaign. So the last one is building the identity. This is where the audience now takes the action and forms part of you guys, and the action actually forms part of who they are. So here is your job to also build the activist identity, which means that you can invite them to join your movement or organization if you see that they are proactive. And in that way, they can always help you at any point in time that you need them to help you do a campaign of some sort. Questions? Or if I made sense, let me know. I figured I've been talking so much again, so I just want to pause here again and see if everything is sinking in or if I was just making noise.
I think for me, everything.
All right, Robert. Moro, are you following? Okay. So let's move into creative engagement tactics. And we said that the tactics are the sort of things that you do Charity says she's following. Great. So creative engagement tactics, and we said that the tactics were the things that you do, the artistic things that you do to, raise people's awareness, arouse their feelings, and inspire them to take actions. So, and I also gave an example of a tactic being maybe coming out with an art piece. It could be a painting, it could be a spoken word, it could be a song that is used to communicate, right? So we want to look at how we can actually do this, how we can create like creative and engaging tactics. So the general thing that we need to know is that before we can consider your tactic to be a creative one, it needs to embrace some of these points. The first one is that you bring your message closer to your audience. So that means that whatever message that you are sending across using an art form, it needs to be closer to your audience. It needs to be something that the audience can actually understand or comprehend. So within your poem or within your song or within your video or whatever it is that you are using, you need to use a kind of message that everyone can actually listen to and understand. The second one is that you need to make it interactive. We want to have spectators, but we want to have people who would actually engage in anything that we are doing. So if your tactic or your strategy is not engaging enough, then people might not really have that chance to interact with whatever it is that you are doing. The third one is that you need to create spaces for expression and action in public. That means that you as an artistic activist doing a campaign doesn't have to always be the one doing it. You need to create room for your audience to also express themselves during that public action that you are doing. The fourth one is that you need to engage audience in actions with a political meaning. And this, we already discussed about that. And when you look at the issue of climate change, people might not necessarily see it as a political issue. This is where you need to engage the audience in that regard and let them understand that there is a political connotation to it, and that they also need to express their views, express their emotions, and also take an action. The fifth one is to combine various art forms during your campaign. And we mentioned before that creativity also comes from combination, right? So it's important that you combine different art forms and use it in your campaign. This will help your audience to really connect with whatever it is that you are doing. Because there could be an artist and there could be an audience that do not really care about a certain art form, but then that is the only art form that you are using. So in this case, you might not really be reaching out to those audience, right? But when you use a combination of various or different art forms, then you can speak to the needs of all the other audiences that may be within the audience that you are reaching out to. So it's very important to always combine the various art forms. So the next couple of slides has to do with some tips on how to use some of the art forms, some of the different art forms to engage the audience. So we have one for theater, we have one for poetry, we have some for visual arts, installations, music, and so much more. But because of time, I cannot go through all these slides. And I said that we will be sharing this with you, and you can go through it yourself and make your own sense out of it. But in any case, if you see something within the slides that does not really go down well with you, or you don't really understand, you can always reach out to us via our emails or any of our contacts that we'll be sharing with you, and then we can give you an explanation on that. So, planning an artistic activist action, here are some of the steps, and we've already gone through some of the steps, and the only thing that is left with for us to do now is to look at the evaluation, which we'll be entering in a bit. I just want to give you like an overview of what we have been discussing so far and where we are headed. So the first one here is the vision. So you need to define what your vision is. You need to also have like an artistic aim. You need to come out with objectives. And we mentioned that your objectives has to be SMART. And with artistic activism, you can actually have two different objectives. The one that can be artistic, and the one that would be activist objectives. The one that would gear towards the effect, and the one that would gear towards the effect. And then you look at your audience and you do your audience analysis. Then you also need to define some certain principles that you want to work within. So if your campaign is talking about climate change, then you need to reflect in a way that people can, see you as role models to that particular issue. So if maybe you are talking about issues of climate change, but during your campaign, you are using so many plastics, you're actually littering the environment, or you are destroying a particular vegetation to create space for something that you want to do, then it does not really speak well about your campaign. And you also need to look at the type of actions to do, and we talked about the tactics and engagement. Then the seventh one is for you to do your own audience engagement, which we just discussed so far. And yeah, these are some of the examples of how you can actually engage your audience with videos, with images or paintings or music, and so on. So the next thing to discuss is evaluation. Evaluation. So this is just the same thing as the session, the slide before. Sorry, I'm rushing for us to just finish up this as we have something to discuss before we close for today's. So yeah, evaluation. So let's look at some evaluation tools for artistic activism. And I want this to be a participatory discussion. I don't want to just present what we have from here. So I'm going to ask you, how do you evaluate your actions? I mean, from experience, it might not be any artistic action, but maybe you did a campaign some time back and you sort of evaluated the campaign. I just want to know, what kind of tools did you use to evaluate your campaign or project? And anyone can share with us what their experience are on that. Hello. Anyone?
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Robert.
So in my previous campaign,
Yes.
cervical cancer screening awareness levels and among the female students from the University of Zambia. Was done. We implemented various strategies and practices. Then during our evaluation, we sent out a few questions, a few questionnaires to the various participants. And
Right.
questions, we targeted them. The questions were in line with what we wanted to hear. For example, in terms of awareness levels, we started asking them, so have you considered going for screening, cervical cancer screening, after you heard of the various adverts and the posters that were stuck around campus? And they started giving us those responses. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you very much for sharing. Who else wants to say something? No. Okay. I guess we can move forward. So first of all, let's talk about why it's important for us to evaluate. We need to evaluate in order to assess the success of our artistic actions or our campaigns. We need to also quantify the outcomes of our artistic actions or campaigns, and we need to improve the artistic actions or campaigns. So yes, we do all this just because at the end of the day, we need to know if we are doing something right and if we can do better next time. So learn from our experiences and improve on the ways and how we go about our artistic actions. So who are the evaluators? So when it comes to artistic activism, we the artists or we the people who are organizing the campaigns are our own evaluators, you know, and this can be done during the planning, the implementation, and also at the very end of the project or the campaign. Yes, so that is it. The process starts right from the planning and throughout the whole process of your campaign or your artistic action. So these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself when you are evaluating. The first one is that how do you know that the action achieved the objectives? And you know, during the planning stage, you set out your objectives, which we also emphasize that these objectives need to be smart so that at the end of the day, you can measure your achievements. So with the evaluation, you ask yourself if your action actually achieved some of those objectives you set for yourself in the beginning. And the second question is that how do you know if the action engaged the audience? So after doing your audience analysis and drawing creative engagement with your audiences, how would you know if these actions actually engage the audience? Did you notice that a lot of audience were sharing their opinion? Did you notice that the audience were joining in with your artistic action? Do you know that your campaign had an impact on certain people? These are some of the things that you have to look out for in order to know if your action actually engaged the audience or not. And the third one is how would you evaluate the long-term impact of the action? So maybe as part of your action, some people promised that they were going to change their ways. Maybe they pledged that they were not going to use single-use plastics, or maybe they were not going to litter, or maybe they won't cut down trees. So these things you can actually use to measure the long-term impact of your actions, as you can always do a follow-up to see if they are actually committing to some of the things that they pledged to do. So the evaluation metrics, what will you use to measure this? So let's say during your planning stage, you wanted your audience to feel a certain kind of way, you wanted them to think a certain kind of way, and you wanted them to take certain actions with regards to your topic of discussion. That is how you will measure the success, or that is the metrics that you will use to judge yourself as to whether you have done a good job or whether you can do better next time. And the evaluation tools, we will be looking at it shortly, which is in the next session. So the evaluation tools includes documentation, it includes observation, interviews, surveys, focus group discussions, public analysis, follow-ups, and you can always be creative and use other ways to evaluate the success of your workshop. So with the observation, you can do it during the campaign. You just look out and see how people are interacting with your campaign, or how people are participating in your campaign, or how people are, you know, having like chit chats about whatever it is that you are doing. And based on that, you can record something down to show the kind of engagement you are doing. You can also observe to see the number of people who are participating or who are around just looking at what you are doing during the campaign. And these follow-ups are very, very important. Especially if you have audience pledging to do certain things. I remember we did a particular campaign some time back on climate change, and we took the context of some students who had pledged that when they get back to their schools and communities, they were going to separate their waste. They were not going to add plastics and papers and organic materials all together. They will find ways of separating this. So after taking their contacts, 3 months after our campaign, we actually called some of them to see if all those pledges they made, if they are actually carrying it out or not. And this is one very good way to know the impact that you are making on the society. On-spot interviews is very important to have on-spot interviews. And this is because you need to understand what the audience are thinking and what they are feeling and what sort of actions they are taking during that particular campaign that you are doing. You can always have someone within your midst who will be tasked to do these on-spot interviews. So when you are working within a team, you can choose one person, two people, or even three to just go around and interview people to know what their thoughts are, what their feelings are, and what sort of actions they are taking or would take with regards to the topic of the topic that you are discussing or the topic that you are having your action on. So who are the people to interview? You interview your participants and people who are passing by. Your participants being the audience, the one who are listening to you or the ones who are joining your campaign. You interview these people and get to know what their thoughts and feelings and actions are. And how do you do this? You just ask what they think, feel, and do about your action. And you can also ask what they will do after the campaign that they are witnessing. And this can be done during the action and or after the action as a follow-up. Okay. Yes, so follow-ups. And I think I've mentioned this before. This is to help us document the long-term impact of our artistic actions. And we can do this by gathering the contacts of our participants and follow up with them via phone, SMS, or emails. Ask what they remember. So when you make these follow-ups, these are some of the questions you can also ask them. So you ask them what they remember about the action or the campaign and what issue that you discussed in the campaign. You can also ask them what they have done so far and whether they have done anything after the issue since they witnessed the campaign that you did. And of course, this can only be done after the action, maybe a month, 2 or 3 after the action. So we have a template here that can actually help you to document some of the reflections. So here we have people's attention, we have people's feelings, we have people's thoughts, and people's action. The total number of people that maybe you have engaged, and take some certain notes and see how they were actually feeling, or what sort of thoughts they were having, and what sort of actions they were doing or are pledging to do. And you can also write other comments and the contacts of the people that you have engaged so that you can make follow-ups with them later. So this is all that I have on the last aspect of the artistic activism training, which is the evaluating artistic actions. Any questions so far? Any questions? And I want someone to ask the question. That is how I know if you were attentive or if I was speaking sense, maybe.
Hello.
Hi.
So, in most cases, monitoring and evaluation goes together.
Uh-huh.
So, according to what you at the end of it, I haven't heard of more of monitoring. At what point do you stop?
Okay, so like I said, when we were talking about the strategy, and the early stages of the planning artistic actions, I said that it's important to always reflect and look back and see what you are doing and correct certain mistakes that you have made or do certain things differently in order to achieve your goal. So which essentially is the monitoring here. Okay, so maybe as part of your campaign, you have listed out 4 major things to do. One is to have like a drama performance about climate change. 2 is to have engage opinion leaders about enforcing certain laws. 3 is about educating young people in schools about climate change and what their contributions are. And the 4th one could be that you are making a documentary of all these actions that you have done, right? In your first and second, you can pause and reflect on these 2 actions that you have done and see what lessons you can learn from them. And you don't even have to wait to do the second one in order to do the reflection. You can actually do reflection with the first one. Right after you are done with your first activity, you can sit back together as a team and reflect on the things that you did well, the things that you didn't do so well, and you can improve and do differently next time. So this will help you to plan the next action and ensure that you don't make what you have already made in the first one. So while you are doing that, essentially you are monitoring whatever it is that you are doing until the very end, where you can do like a general evaluation of the whole process. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
All right. Any other?
I have a question when it comes to Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to, let's say, message that has been put in a song, give an example. Let's say we're talking about people changing their attitudes in terms of COVID-19. How do you measure evaluation? Is it the number of people sharing it, or maybe the comments, or the streaming of it? Because there are issues of like people downloading it, others are sharing it with others, and others maybe are dropping comments on the same. How can you gauge whether people really have gotten the message?
Great. That is a very, very relevant question that you have asked. And yes, I think especially if it's something that you are sharing online, the number of streams that you have, the number of comments that you are getting, and the number of likes that you are getting from sharing the music could be used as a way of measuring the impact that it has made. But one thing that you also need to do is that even before releasing the song, you need to put in certain things within the song that will help you to measure at the end of the day. For instance, you can have like a call to action inside the song and say, if you understand what I'm saying, then this is what you should do, you know? And you also challenge people to share what they have done afterwards. And like when you have people actually doing what you recommended and even sharing it, you can use it as a way of measuring the impact that it has made on these people. And this could be tangible things that they have done thanks to the song that you have created. So there was a time that someone asked me, what about some of these musicians who do music about certain issues that affect the society? Do we say they are artistic activists? I would say no, because if you are to consider yourself as an artistic activist, that means that you need to deliberately have like a plan and deliberately have like ways to measure the impact, not just the number of streams or not just the number of shares or the number of people singing your song, but also the number of people who have actually changed their behaviors, number of people who have actually engaged in a different level with the issue that you are talking about, thanks to your song. It is when you have all these things, and at the end of the day, you can actually measure that you can call yourself an artistic activist. It's very important to always have those indicators to help you to measure the impact that you are going to get at the end of the day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I would like to hand over to Daniel, who would take us through the next and very final part of the workshop. And I thank you so much for your contribution and your attention during the session. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, just before you go, and
Yes.
is there any room for pre-testing our artistic materials?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I'm saying, is there any room for pre-testing our artistic materials?
Projecting your artistic materials.
Yes, pre-testing. Like before you,
Pre-testing.
yes.
Yes, of course. This is it's very important to always do a pre-test before you actually go out there to do it. And I'm not sure if we actually have like such a platform, but as a team and as if you are working with other people, you can always do a test run of whatever it is that you want to do out there so that you can point out certain corrections that you might have before you even step out. So yeah, it's very important to do pre-tests before you do your campaign.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Okay. So some of the things that I can mention when I'm explaining about climate change, I can mention about uh, food, uh, farming practices, and yeah, avoiding throwing plastic bags, or literally the stop of using plastic bags which are non-biodegradable. Yeah, I would also mention uh, like switching solar, avoid the use of switching to solar, and also the use of gas instead of wood and stuff like that.
The question again? Oh, I will mention about like I can mention previously or current. So previously we had a deficit of electricity supply due to the patterns of the lens how it was coming. Then again we had uh, we had the I think like the harvest in terms of the harvest from the fields or the maize uh, was not enough, which resulted even to the price increase in the milling mill. You know, in Southern Africa, we depend much on maize, where we eat in Shima. That's most in Southern Africa. So we are impacted where the prices went up. So that was another major challenge which we can point out that no, these are the results of climate change. So basically, I'll point out that the two, yeah, the deficit in the power supply, and it led to the increase of prices in the major commodity which our people in the country eat, the maize. The maize tonnage which the country produced yield was reduced. which even we couldn't manage to export in that particular year. I think even late, I think late, is it by the end of somewhere around October, December 2020, we had the challenge, including January of 2021. That's we can specify that Zambia experienced major climate changes the way the harvest was. We had a drought, a mini drought in short.
Hello? Can you hear? Yes. So is it something to do on a personal level or just the country in general? So, for me, I would say because in our country, the Department for Climate Justice, it's a bit small. I can say like the Ministry of Climate Justice, it's a bit small. So for me, I would also want to see how the budget allocation for for the monies for climate justice, how they are distributed. I want young people to get involved. And I would also say planting, like the cutting down of trees, like currently in Zambia, there is a development where they are extending like roads in our capital city and in other places. So you find they cut down the trees minus planting. So I would want any tree that is cut, they should always replace it. So like the road that was going straight into town, almost all the odd trees were cut, and up to now they haven't been replaced. Then the issue also of clean water, I would also point it out because in the city where I live, there are so many people that are building houses, and they are also digging some boreholes, which kind of like the water is not really clean in terms of sanitation. So for me, I would want justice for that. And also, everybody in my country, they are driving cars, and sometimes even the smoke, it's kind of bad, from the cars. So I would also want the government maybe to put it into like it should be part of the government policies, whereby they should also promote people using bicycles. Yeah, I think just that as for now. I've been getting sleep. I'm on the meeting, I think, please.
See, comrade. Yes, it's visible.
Yes, we can.
Uh, I can see a cartoon with the trees around it. Yeah, it has a mouth and it's still being drawn. That's what I can see on the screen. And there's some white paper. Yeah, so I think this represents the earth and its nature.
I was trying to wait until he drew the eyes so that I could see the expression of the cartoon. And from now that he has drawn the eyes, I can see that the cartoon is content, is peaceful. It's not sad. It's not worried because it looks healthy. The trees are green and all that. So I'm going to say this is a happy looking world.
I okay. What I can see is a picture of not so sad Mother Earth and a few trees on top with some grass on the forehead. Yeah.
maybe just to try or to add on what everybody has said. Yes, I can see the Mother Earth is not the only person who should be happy, but I can also see the birds, because the birds, they also get affected. I can just say all the animals, they also get affected to climate change, but there I can see the earth is green, and looking at the birds of the air, I guess even like other animals, they are happy seeing the trees, but you're adding some more effects. Oh my God. Those are tears?
They are.
Mm.
What the application which you are using for drawing? Again. Because on yesterday we tried to use the fonts, it was failing.
Okay, let me finish, even if there are some tears added.
I was still standing in defense of it. The tears are the rivers that are freely flowing without human distraction, because there are times when, as a result of human activity, we try to change the course of the rivers. So I would defend it that way.
I think the colors of the trees is green and that's a little bit dark, green and dark. So I think this means that no, as the activities which will be happening at the end, mean the trees will be, the green will be reducing. That's with the as the climate is changing. So many the plants will be affected where we can see they are drying up.
Daniel, are you asking the color of the water that we know, or the tears that we can see on the Mother Earth? Or is still on the narration, like we need to narrate what we can see? Okay. Okay, maybe let me just try to narrate what I'm thinking about climate justice here. So for me, about climate change, it's about the trees, the animals in the air, and even the tears that are showing. It shows under the sea, which is like the water bodies. And I can see a human being who also gets affected to climate justice. And so I've mentioned the trees, the air, where there are birds, the rivers, even a human being herself. And the African map that's added, it means like all people around the world, they are also affected to climate change. So it may not what we affected in Zambia, but even like other parts of the globe, they are also getting affected in a different way. So we can, yeah, maybe just that. They are black. We can see the blackbirds now on the narration, but we have different colors of we have the birds have got different colors.
Today, actually, the application is
Can I say again?
No, someone wants to say something again. I think it's Momodiva, right?
and, and the sun, the sun is shining.
Well, when I first started, I was just looking at drawing like the world or the globe with so many trees, because that is my vision for climate justice. That we plant more trees, because I feel like the trees are the lungs of the world. You know, it absorbs all the um, the gases that we human beings are not able to absorb, like the carbon dioxide and all. And yeah, well, but since we all started like interpreting, like it gave me more inspiration, it gave me more ideas to add more elements to it. So Momo Diva actually had almost everything right, you know, with how the earth is smiling, with all the you know the trees, I actually kept in the tears or the water in there to sort of confuse certain people, but she still stood her grounds and said, "No, these are not tears; they are like rivers." And for sure, that is what I had in mind while I was drawing that, because tears are like water, right? That is within us, and I feel like the earth also needs a lot of water to And the yellow eyes that you see, yellow can also represent gold, right? So it is actually talking about the natural resources that we have. And yeah, the birds are a representation of other source of life on this planet, including the animals, fishes in the sea, and all that. And of course, the African map is talking about we the people and how we are divided and how we shouldn't be divided, because climate change hits everyone wherever you are in the world. So not just Africans, but also the whole wide world. And the sun there is just to give us more nutrients, to give us more brightness to do more. Because I feel like this sun here is just telling us that there is more that we can do to shine more on Mother Earth and do more for a better planet. That is what I have. But this is all just spontaneous. I didn't really have I didn't premeditate on it. It just came. That's how come you see a little bit rough. Yeah, that's what I have. Bring money. Bring money.
Daniel, before you go, you mean the drawing, we can draw it, we can do it on a paper? We can draw it on a paper and huh?
Yes, you can actually
Hello?
draw a paper and take a picture and upload it to the phone. It's possible to do that.
Oh, all right. Okay, with the vision is to write it there on the other part.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Daniel, I think you can. I request that even you can forward even the link to our emails together, the same link. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. My contact I share again.